Hi, this is General Jabber and I'm doing a how-to on track weathering for this video. Right in front of you we've got two bog standard Hornby straight sort of pieces, you know what I mean. And I've had a go at weathering for the first time. I've never done it before and I can instantly see how much of an effect it has on the track. Obviously the one behind is the unweathered one, and yeah, I mean if you do it really carefully it can be really subtle and put bits like rust in there, and you know, overall it looks so much better with the trains, and yeah, and with the ballast it's going to look fantastic, and I will show you as my new layout progresses. All of the videos coming soon will show that. But for this video I'm going to show you how to do track weathering with paint. Right, so the items you see in front are the items you're going to need for the track weathering. What we use to sort of colour the rails and the sleepers is we use this Humbrol enamel paint, which is number 173, and I think that's called Authentic Rail Colour or Rail Match, something like that. And what we do is we give it a coat of paint first with that, and then what I did was I let it dry and then I applied some weathering powders just over the top. I haven't put any varnish on actually, but it's still on the sleepers, like the dirt bits you can see. So I don't know, if anyone wants to comment and say you need to do it, that'd be great. So what I also use is I use two types of brushes. I use a sort of thin brush to apply the paint, and I use this brush which I'll keep for just applying my weathering powders, and the thicker brushes are better for that in my experience. I've also got a train over here which I've had a go at weathering, which is an LMS 060 by Hornby, and that comes in the night mail set. And that looks fantastic with the weathering, and I'll show you how to weather a locomotive in another video, and that will probably come shortly. But yeah, so here we go. Also, you might want to use some sort of newspaper or any paper you can find, just to put your model or your track on, so paint doesn't go everywhere. Back in a mo. Right, so we're finally ready to go. We've got everything we need, and what I have here is I've got two bottle tops. Firstly, the grey one's got paint thinner in, which is the Humbrol thinners, and also I've got some just normal tap water in the green top, which does come in handy now and again. Right, so first we've got to give painting a good shake so it's all sort of distributed all together, and then what you'll need is a flat end screwdriver, and that takes it off. So pop the camera somewhere. Right, so it's off. Okay, so before you start it's probably a good idea to just give the paint a quick mix inside, and then you're able to start. So what we want is we want a nice sort of coat along the sleepers and along the sides of the rail. I'll lift it up for you in a second. We want a nice thin coat. We don't want loads and loads and loads on. And you give it a good paint all the way along the insides of the rails, and it doesn't matter if you get it on the top of a rail. As you can see, I've got a little bit just there which has gone over the top, because we can scrape that off later when the paint's dry. And I'll come back to you in a bit when it's all painted. So there we go. I've more or less painted the whole piece of track apart from the clips at the end, which I've left clear. As you can see as well, the tops of the rail do have paint on, and obviously your trains aren't going to work if the paint's sort of covering it. So as you can see on my finished one over there, I have scraped the paint off. Some people do actually use a cloth at this point to scrape it off, but I prefer to come back later when it's dry and use a flat end screwdriver, and it comes off really easily, and then the operation of the trains is absolutely fine. So what I'll do is I'll weather another piece of track, wait for this to dry, and then I'll come back to you and show you about the scraping off process, and then finishing off with a bit of weathering powder to really give the track a proper dirty and realistic look. Okay, see you in a bit. Whilst I'm allowing the track to dry, I also thought that, well, I've got a buffer stop here which is generally very similar colour to the rails, pretty much. So I'm going to give that a paint, and also what I'm going to do is, let's find it, I'm going to use some red enamel paint to sort of mark out these parts here where the buffers would hit, because I think that might look nice. So I'm going to use the same paint, the sort of authentic rail match on the main part of the buffer, let that dry, and then add a bit of red, and hopefully that should look excellent as well. I'll show you the results of that. When done, just use a bit of the paint thinners. You could use like white spirit or something, and just give your brush a rinse with it, because if you leave it, the brush will sort of stick and the paint won't come out, which is a bit of a pain. But yeah, you have to be persistent with this, I'm afraid. So here we are, back to the original piece of track which I painted at the start. It's pretty much dry. The best bit to do, this is the best time to sort of add the weathering powder, because the material's still a little bit sticky, so it's quite useful and it sort of sticks it down. But one of the other key parts of this is removing some of the excess paint that we don't want, and a bit of methylated spirit is quite good at removing it, as you can see, because we need good contact still with the track. So, and over any of the ends, it's quite important to make sure get rid of any excess paint. Okay, right. Next stage involves actually getting the paint off the top of the rails. What I normally use is a flat-ended screwdriver, which is quite effective in taking off just like so. Just run that along the top of the rail. I mean, I'm aware that there are like proper erasers for this job, but I quite like using the screwdriver as well, because it obviously it's not going to wear out, is it? And it's quite effective. So I'll come back to you when I've scraped them all off. There we have it. Quick 5-minute job. The rails are completely clear, which means we'll have smooth operation of the trains again, which is fantastic. Right, so the next stage is actually applying the weathering powders to the track to grime them up a little bit. So what I have with me today is I've got dark earth, and I've also got iron oxide. These sort of weathering powders are really good, especially if you use them subtly, which I'll show you how to do. And the idea is you need to sort of make sure it's not uniform, because you know, if it's all sort of covered, it's not going to look quite as realistic as you're going to want it to. So what I like to use is a sort of big brush, like this one, and that's quite good for spreading the sort of powders. And what I found is with the sort of brighter powders like the iron oxide is use it in very small doses. So what I do, because paint's still a little bit, so if we say around here, Actually, what I'll do is I'll move it over here a little bit so the light's a bit better. So if we want to say there's a bit of rust here, that's it. You know, we don't want to go too overboard with it. What I do is with the rust is I use a bit of dark earth, blend that in around it. And that sort of takes this sort of edge off it a little bit. And then what I like to do with the powders is you just sort of spread them along, you know, nothing too extreme. A little bit of rust around there. And basically we add the rust to anywhere that would be sort of metallic. But the trick is to sort of not go too mad. No, I mean, I know Britain's railways aren't the best, but you know, I'm sure the track's not that dirty. You know. And what's useful about this is any sort of bits you've missed with the paint, you can sort of cover up with the powders, which can be quite useful. And there it is. Second piece of weathered track. Slightly more weathered than the original, but the effect's still really well. So what I'll do is I'll come back one more time to show you what I've done with the buffer and to show you how that's come out, and then I'll leave you with some shots of the trains running across it. Thanks for watching. So here's my buffer. That's all nice and dry, and I think it's come out really well. The red's sort of not too striking, and yeah, I'm really happy with that. So what we're going to look at is the sort of areas where sort of the camera doesn't pick it up too well, but when I add the sort of rust colours, you'll pick up what I mean. But there are areas on this Hornby buffer which show like sort of rivets, like around there, sort of like metallic sort of parts of a buffer, and those are the parts which are going to get rusty, obviously. So I'm going to try and give this a good weathering over, and we'll see how that comes out. So first of all, I've never done a buffer before, so if this goes wrong, just adding bits around. We don't want to go too mad as usual with the rust colours. Blend in a bit of dark earth here and there. So I like the sort of mixture between the red oxide and the dark earth. Sort of combine quite well. And what I'll do, I'll move it over into the light. There you can see the sort of colours are starting to take shape, and it's already really looking quite good. And I'm sure after a bit this will really look the part. Right, so I'll come back to you in a bit when I've got this done, and that'll be it. There we have it, finished buffer, which looks so much better with the weathering, and that was such an easy sort of task to sort of bring it to life. And you know, the great sort of blending of the rust and the dark earth looks fantastic on that buffer, and I'm sure we'll see that buffer again very soon. Right, and I think that's all about it which I can show you today. I will, as I said, leave you with some shots of some of the locos going round on the newly weathered track. Thanks for watching, and feel free to comment and subscribe.